Good morning, Sarah Gorrell until 2 o'clock this afternoon. Lots coming in on how people drive through villages. Has it been an annoyance for you? What's the most dangerous road where you live? Is it down to the road itself, or is it down to poor driving, the way that drivers behave, the sort of lack of regard they have for communities as they drive through them? Well, the MP for Lewes, Maria Caulfield, raised the issue of road safety in rural areas in Sussex in Parliament yesterday.
Parishes in my constituency, such as Ditchling and Ringmer, want to introduce road safety measures such as reducing the speed limit and reducing the number of HGVs cutting through the villages, but have been told by the local highways authority that not enough fatalities have occurred. Could the Minister outline how we can change this policy so we can make villages in my constituency safer?
Start.
The Honourable Member for Lewes is a fantastic champion for her rural communities and villages. We know that inappropriate speed is particularly important, but speed limits are one tool within it. We believe that local transport authorities are best placed to know their local areas, so DfT has rightly given the power to vary speed limits to local authorities and issued guidance to support them on that, and taking a balance of safety, data, enforcement and other factors in when making those decisions. And I'm happy to write to her further with that detail.
Well, Maria told me more about the problems that she highlighted in Ditchling and Ringmer.
So my concerns really, particularly around Ditchling, but there are other villages in East Sussex, in my constituency, that are affected by this, is that these are small villages with, very small, narrow roads. And the two big issues that we're really facing is, one, the volume of traffic and people using villages as cut-throughs instead of using the main A roads, and really speeding through villages that are not designed for that. But also the amount of heavy goods vehicles as well. I mean, Ringmer and Ditchling are, pretty overwhelmed with this. And we see in Ditchling where vehicles get stuck in the middle of the road, wing mirrors get damaged, people actually get hit sometimes by big vehicles trying to navigate their way through narrow roads. And what we're really calling for, and as I spoke in Parliament yesterday, is the local council do actually have the powers to deal with most of these issues, but are reluctant at the moment to do so. We're making a little bit of progress in some of the villages. Alfriston, for example, have got a scheme that will be starting soon, and Westmeston, just down the road, have worked really hard just to try and get some road safety measures in place, but it shouldn't be this much of a struggle.
I know we'll get lots of reaction to this when we talk about it this morning, whether not from necessarily just from Ditchling, but from other villages as well, because people seem to drive through villages forgetting that they are villages, and you've got a lot of pedestrians, people that are maybe not expecting people to come at high speed through the village.
Yeah, and that's absolutely right. And at the moment, some of the villages that we have are at national speed limits, even though the roads, and you're supposed to drive to the conditions of the road, not to the speed limit. But we know that doesn't always happen in practice. But by reducing the speed limit and having signs saying 20 miles an hour, doing some soft engineering just to make the road a little bit more obvious that it's a village, and signs just away from the villages directing traffic to more suitable A roads would make a difference. So it's not a huge ask that we're pushing for, and some of those subtle small changes could make a difference. But our little tiny village roads are particularly dangerous for pedestrians, mums with pushchairs, people in buggies, because the traffic comes at such a speed. If you are hit, then it's going to be a very nasty accident.
And what you do see as well, aside from the speed, you mentioned the lorries there, and they get stuck. And then what people do is they try and negotiate themselves around. They mount pavements, which of course then puts potentially pedestrians at risk. And you'd think that before doing that, you'd check there was no one on there, but that doesn't always happen. And I've seen lots of near-miss experiences during my time in Ditchling.
Oh, absolutely. And the frustration in Ditchling in particular is it does actually have a width limit. And so vehicles shouldn't be going through there if they're greater than that. It's for access only. They should be using the A roads, but the enforcement isn't happening. Even when I have personally, when people send me photos of big lorries trying to get through, written to those companies and say, there is a width restriction on this road, you shouldn't be using it. But the problem is with sat-navs, at the moment, they are still directing vehicles that are larger than they should be through those roads. And again, the local council has the power to speak to sat-nav companies and make sure that those roads are restricted and not given automatically as directions when someone puts in a postcode or a destination. So my frustration really is the local councils have the powers, and even when they have the powers, they're not using them or enforcing them when they have brought in some restrictions. So there isn't a huge amount that would take to make a big difference for residents in villages. So people aren't anti-traffic, they're not anti people coming to the village, but it isn't safe in many instances. Alfriston has the same problem with vehicles mounting the pavement to try and pass each other. And that isn't safe for residents just trying to walk up and down their village high street.
What will it take then for the council to get involved and for this to be put a stop to be put to this? I've known, there's been a couple of accidents, but does it take more accidents before it's taken seriously?
Well, the point I made in Parliament was that when I've spoken to the council before, their rationale for not making changes or not enforcing some of the restrictions is that they do it on a safety calculation based on how many fatalities there are on a stretch of road. And actually, I think most residents and myself argue that we should be preventing accidents rather than reacting to them. So I think the fact that the Minister has confirmed that the council have the powers, I'm going to re-energise my efforts to try and get some of those measures done. Parishes like Alfriston and Westmeston have kind of taken the lead in terms of trying to get fundraising done to get some of the safety measures done themselves, but they shouldn't have to. This is kind of a basic kind of common sense approach that with a bit of effort we could make some quick progress on.